Oh, I saw the weed shake. I know there's one in there. Either he's spooked out of there or he's interested in the bait. Something turned. I saw him shake again. Oh, man, did you see that? There he is. He's got it. I saw him weed shake. I knew he was coming after it. That soft presentation certainly paid off there. Yes, nice fish. If I'd have splashed that in on top of his head, there's no way that fish would have bit it. But by easing it in there, you can see the results. You can get them good fish to bite. That'll ignore somebody's offering that was thrown in there wrong. The value of a quiet presentation. And I don't know of another technique that you can get it in there as quiet as you can with flipping and pitching. There is none. Some of the guys are pretty good at casting sidearm, but even a sidearm cast, it's hard to control the momentum of the bait. If you practice flipping and pitching at different distances, you will learn how much force to put on that rod with your forward motion so that that bait does die right at the target. That was fun.
The Bass Class with Denny Brauer is in session, and it's being brought to you by Evinrude Outboards, powered by Fick Fuel Injection, and by Daiwa Extreme Performance Tackle.
Very important when you're making these flips or pitches to try to get that bait to die right at the impact point where your target is, so that it's almost like it's running out of gas right there. And by doing that, by keeping it low to the water and the momentum ceasing right at the target, you'll get that real soft splash. Even if you keep it low and you try to cast too hard, you're going to drive it into the water. So you learn to judge the distance of your target and just ease it into the water like that, and it's real natural, especially in this shallow water. If you go busting a lure down on top of the fish's head, especially the bigger fish, you've ruined your chances of catching them. That's part of what makes flipping and pitching such a neat technique, is the soft entry, easing it into the water. And I spent a lot of time practicing so that I could get that soft entry. And you don't have to be at the lake to do that. You can do that in your backyard. I can remember them cold, snowy days when I lived back up in Nebraska. I practiced in my living room, took a coffee cup and sat it underneath one of my wife's plants, pretended I was at the lake flipping and pitching, and I got to where I could put it in that coffee cup about 99 times out of 100 and without it going clang, and I think that was part of the key, to just ease it in there. Wasn't much left of that corner of the house or a plant after I got done, but at least I got accurate at what I was trying to do. Get out of that. Oh, right in the middle. Come on, you can get out of there. Was he buried up under them hyacinths or what? Where are you going? Are you ready to come aboard? Sure you are. Yeah. Nice fish. Whew. Was that fun? Man, is he hooked. Wish I had him hooked that good in tournaments all the time. You'd never have one come on. There we go. Whew. That was neat. Some people don't realize that you can spook some of these fish too. You You see us on camera getting close to them and using this flipping technique, and you think, well, I can get right on top of them and do this. Well, when the water's dirty, yeah, you can at times. But there's other times when the water's clear, I'll stay back away from them and make a little longer pitch so that I don't get real close. And something else that matters to me, and I don't know how much difference it makes, but the more confidence I can give myself in fishing, the more success I think I have, especially when I'm tournament fishing, is to wear colors that aren't real bright when you're fishing close to fish. I've got on kind of natural colors today, and I think that's a little bit of an asset. We were lucky enough to have a local ranger dealer furnish us a boat for this filming, but my personal boat, I use a dark boat. I've got a blue boat with a black bottom, and yeah, it matches my Evinrude motors and everything, but I still think that darker boat is a little less obtrusive to those fish when I'm working them real close. So that's just something else you might be aware of in your fishing. To try not to spook them in any way, shape, or form. And with your trolling motors, be extremely quiet. If you can drift with the wind like we are this morning, just working through the cover, you can be even more subtle as far as sneaking up on them. But if your trolling motor's loose or if it's making a lot of noise, you're not going to catch these fish, folks. If you and I are out fishing and you're kicking that tackle box around and stomping around the boat, I'm going to let you out on the dock because you are hurting my chances of catching a big fish. It's not quite like deer hunting where you've got to be super quiet. We can talk back and forth. I don't think that's going to spook the fish. But as far as vibration noise, I really think that makes a difference. So try to be as quiet as you can, and it's going to make you a better flipper. Why do you need a long handle? Wouldn't it be more comfortable if you had a short handle? Absolutely not. For one thing, we got leverage. That long handle balances the rod so that it's not tip heavy. If your rods are real tip heavy, you're going to develop arm fatigue, elbow fatigue, and that's where your tennis elbow starts to come into play because you're using rods that are too tip heavy. So you want a balanced outfit. It should not be like that. It should be fairly balanced. It also gives you the leverage. We're talking fishing close to fish now. That's what you got to keep in mind. You hit an 8-pound fish in a bush right there, he's going to own you. He's going to wrap up and he's probably going to get off if you've got a short handle because you don't have any wrist leverage. He's going to break you down. He's going to own the rod, so to speak. But if you have this long handle, here's where I keep it. I'm left-handed, so I don't have to do a lot of switching back and forth. But I keep it locked underneath my arm. There's no way that fish can break me down. I've got total control over him. If you like to bury it into your belly or however, find you an anchor point for the back of your rod. I think that's very important because if you have hold of it here and you have it anchored somewhere back here, there's no way that he is going to get control over you. You are going to have control over him. Patterns within patterns are something that materialize during a day. Usually when we start out fishing, we don't realize that that's going to happen, but just by paying attention, after you catch 3 or 4 fish, suddenly, well, shoot, they're all coming from that shady little spot or right in the middle of the cover. And boy, it's easy when it gets like that. Other times you just got to be real thorough and drop your bait around every little possible hiding place. Just keep experimenting. Experimenting and paying attention. Fishing to me is a process of elimination. Eliminate the things that don't work and duplicate the things that do work, like that right there. Man, come aboard. What a nice fish. Settle down, settle down, settle down. We're going to remove that from you right now. Yeah. Now that's what flipping's all about, folks. Is that fun or what? It happens in a hurry. You can see how fast. That water's about 2 foot deep, and I bet that bait didn't settle 6 inches, and that fish had it. And you have to be ready to react. And most of the strikes, not all of them, but a high percentage of the strikes when you're flipping and pitching, because you're putting it right where they live, happen on the fall. And that's when you really want to be paying attention. You're letting that lure fall on a slack line. Not a lot of slack, just enough to where it can fall straight down, and you watch the point where that line enters the water. And if you see that line jump or move sideways, or say I flipped into 4 foot of water and it only settled 2 feet and it stops, jerk. That particular time, that fish hit it so hard, I just saw the line jumping. That's easy when it's like that. But yeah, whoa! I'll bet that hurt. I brought you out of there, didn't I? Fish are really buried up in the middle with this sunshine. Kind of had to jig that up and down a little bit to get that fish to bite. We're back to the lure. It went to the bottom. It doesn't feel heavy. It doesn't feel light. It's still sitting where it's supposed to be. What do we do now? You shake it. Now's the time to jig it up and down. With our jigs on the market nowadays, most of them have rattles. That's when you make that rattle sound off. Jig it 2 or 3 times, pull it out. And you're doing this with your hand again. You flip it in there, you go to pull it out, you pull it back, and you just make your next presentation. Go through that same routine. The neat thing about flipping and pitching, you're always putting it into a strike zone. If I'm throwing a spinnerbait at that stump 20 foot over there, how much of that 20-foot retrieve is strike zone? That much. 2 feet, there's 18 foot of wasted retrieve. In flipping and pitching, when you put it in there, it's in the strike zone 100% of the time. You're always putting it where you think a bass lives. There we go. Be willing to set the hook. Oh, there's a good one. For years, I was a fishing guide on Lake of the Ozarks and Truman Reservoir, and the biggest problem I had with new anglers was getting them to jerk. There's a fish. Especially when we were out there fishing plastic worms and jigs. They wanted to feel the fish. And that's not always what you're looking for. You're looking for something different. And if it's something different or something you're not sure of, that's what you jerk on. There he is. He's got it. Don't wait for that thump, thump, or that pull, because a lot of times that's him going, see ya. What we're basically trying to do right now is find more of those pickerel or arrowhead weeds, whatever you want to call them, those isolated clumps. We got into an area back there and we caught several fish. I mean, it was a very distinct pattern. Wherever you found one of them little clumps, you almost, well, not every time, but I'd say 75% of the time we caught a bass out of them. We're isling around into some new water we haven't fished to try to find and duplicate that same scenario. And if we can find more of those arrowheads that are isolated, I'll bet we catch some more fish out of them. The reels nowadays are designed to make fishing not bulletproof, but very, very easy. When we started out, what was the worst nightmare with bait casting equipment? Backlashes, absolutely. And it still is to a certain degree. This is a very expensive reel right here that I use on the tournament trail. And I'm not saying it's backlash free, but it sure does make fishing easy. It's the Daiwa TDX, it's a new reel that's just come out. The key, and I think this can be probably transfer over to a lot of your equipment, no matter what reels you use. Most of them have what? Magnets or a tension dial of some sort. This is a reel with magnets. And we've got a dial on this side that goes from 0 to 10. When I take it out of the box, I set it on 5. And to me, that's a happy medium. Oh, get ready, boys. Oh, there's a good one. Yes. Right on the point of them reeds. Whoa. That is a strong fish. Come here. Let us have a closer look at you. Yes. That is a beautiful, beautiful bass right there, folks. Healthy. Look at the color on that fish. I'm not going to kiss him, but he's pretty good looking. You can see how that fish is positioned, or was positioned. We got a big clump. We just had caught 2 on the other end. We worked around without getting a bite, and we got to this side where it made another point, same type of cover, bang, got a bite. I won't be a bit surprised if we get back in there and catch another fish. Just a tremendously distinct pattern we have going. Now, the most important part of this reel is right over here. Right underneath the handle, you have this tension knob. Very important feature if you use it correctly. If you don't use it correctly, you're a candidate for what? One of them backlashes. What I do is hold the rod straight out. Engage it, pushing your thumb bar down where I'm putting it in the free spool, and then I start adjusting. And there's about what I'm after. A slow, steady speed of fall with that lure. That's just a hair slow right there. If I adjust it that way, I'm almost bulletproof as far as getting a backlash. My spool is not going to overrun my lure. And keep that in mind. If you've got it set too loose, your spool is going to overrun that bait when it stops, and you better have your thumb there at the perfect time. If I do not set my reel this way, I cannot skip jigs up underneath boat docks, up underneath willow trees, because that spool's going too fast. If I have it set too tight, I can't get any distance to start with. So I think that's your test right there. That's how you should adjust your reels. They determined in some of their studies that if a bass could see, or if we could see, say, a foot underneath the water, a bass can see 5 feet, which just blew my mind that they're able to see 5 times greater than what we are, or a distance 5 times greater. There's a fish. That's a nice little old fish underneath that bunch. I have got a rough job. Yeah. Whew. What a whale. And the hook fell out. Look at that fat fish. He's kind of roughed up. That fish is getting ready to spawn. They do not get any fatter than that. He's ready to bust. Put him back in there. Oh, kind of a rude little bass. Got me definitely all wet. Now, let's say we fish for an hour and we're not getting any bites. Let's try a half-ounce jig or a 5/8 ounce jig. What's the one thing you do? You tie that lure on and you readjust your tension knob. That's the only thing you have to do. And since you went to a heavier lure, it's going to mean that you tighten it up just a hair more. If you go to a 1/4 ounce, a lighter bait, you're going to loosen it a little bit, but you're after that same speed of fall. Now, this is going to be a little hard to show in here, but I can make a pitch and never, ever touch the reel, and there's absolutely no backlash right there. You can't do that if you have it set wrong. That is very, very important, that proper adjustment of your reel. Makes fishing very, very simple. A standard rule of thumb, the colder the water, the longer you work your lure around the target. The warmer the water, usually the faster you can work your baits. The more negative the weather situations, we've all heard about cold front conditions. The longer you work your lure, the more patient you are with those fish. The more positive fishing conditions you're facing, the faster you should fish. If you think they're really biting, you shouldn't have to sit there and shake that bait forever, because if there's a fish there, he's probably going to have it, and you can fish faster. So keep a lot of those things in mind, but ultimately, don't robot fish. Don't go out there and do the same thing all day long. Try different things, experiment. Because the difference between one guy catching them and the other guy killing them is something very minute, something that he picked up on, what we call patterns within patterns. This gentleman and I may be fishing the same cove, but he figured out that every fish was on a green willow tree, and I'm fishing green willow trees, dead willow trees, stumps, and all that. But because he figured that one thing out, he's going to be a lot more efficient.